So welcome to another video from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander, and today we're doing another kind of a faction mini discussion, a strategic discussion for Andean Abyss. And today we're taking a look at FARC. And you are the traditional, very traditional insurgents. You're a communist faction, kind of made up of a lot of different sub-factions in this. But you are attempting to overthrow the government in a violent revolution. So, once again, we will start with, how does the FARC player win the game? The FARC player, their victory conditions stand in direct opposition to the government, unsurprisingly. So FARC, they need to have total opposition plus FARC bases more than 25. And you're going to start the standard scenario with 20. So what's... Oh, here, let me clear off some of these. These aren't supposed to be here. These are an artifact from before. But you're going to start with 20 victory points, and that's the summation of all of your active opposition you have kind of on the fringes of the map, and the 6 bases that you have out. So you are trying to make sure that you keep your bases out. There's 3 victory points here for building more bases, but that's not enough to get you to winning. You need to go out and you need to secure more opposition. The good thing for you is that there are lots and lots of very ripe targets. So most of this kind of center point, or this central area in the mountainous regions and in the cities, there's lots of places that have active support. It's going to take you a while to get those to opposition, but if you can, some of those are worth a lot of money, or a lot of points. So like Medellin's worth 3, Cali's worth 3, you can get that, if you can get that to active opposition, that's doubled to 6. Well, just doing that is going to make you win the game, let alone building bases, let alone gaining any other opposition anywhere else. So, what is it that you're looking to do? Well, early on, the game for you is rally, rally, rally. One of your most important things that you can do is put out bases and put out guerrillas. You want to flood the board with red. The government's going to do a very similar thing. They're going to flood the board with their different blue colors, but you're desperately, desperately trying to flood the board with red as much as you can. You're doing that for a number of reasons. You don't really care about control necessarily, but having lots of different guys means you can take actions multiple times in the same space. When you do a terror action, you have to flip a guy over. Then this is going to go from neutral to passive support, or passive opposition. Well, guess what? Now I don't have a guy that's face down, an underground guerrilla. I can't do that again. So the first thing that I'm looking to do is spend some resources rallying guys. So I can place 1, 2 for the population, 3 for the base. So I'm going to put out 3 guys here early on in the game. Even if I've only got a limb op, that's because someone took a op only, this is a really nice, something like this is a good play. Most of my other bases are either reasonably protected or, you know, if I take a loss there, it's not the end of the world. Because what this does is, this means I've got 2 guys that I can do a terror action 1 turn to get that passive support, and I've got another one to get it to active support. Guess what? 1, 2, 3, 4 victory points. Look how close I am to winning. So it gives me guys to actually do a couple actions over the... So this sets up something that I can do over the long term. This is like 6 cards or 3 turns worth of me doing stuff. I also have the option to rally again. On a subsequent turn I could rally, take 2 of those off for a base. Guess what? Still got a couple guys I can do my terror action with as well. So rallying is very, very good. This is something that you're kind of looking at to start with, but you can't rally in places with active support. So you're looking, if you can go early, you might look at something like putting a guy out here. You might look at going up here. There's a couple points on offer here very, very quickly and very easily. I might put guys down here so that I can start churning up bases into this space where there's not a ton of stuff going on. It's not worth a lot of points for either side, but you're already there. So it's more of a sacrifice for the government to come in and take you out of there and then build it to themselves, so they might be less inclined to do that down here. But looking at these areas where there's lots of neutrality, you might do that. You might also want to put another guy here, and yes, because especially if you can go before AUC. AUC, sometimes, I've seen it, will very early on, because this is how the board state starts, with one each of this, they might do an attack and ambush and kill you here. And you can still rally into there with one guy next time, but it means this is much clearer. They're going to start putting guys in, and all of a sudden, you're like dumping resources into something that's like not really worth anything. It's only worth a couple points. So you might consider doing that as a kind of a protectionist move, putting an extra guy in here, because this is a threat, and I've seen it done, and it was very interesting. Changed the game a little bit. But that's early on, putting out guys, just getting a ton of guys onto the board, because you're going to have, you know, an extra 2 guys here, an extra 2 guys here, a couple guys here, 3 or 4 guys here, an extra 2 here, maybe an extra couple here as well. And all of a sudden, you now threaten all of this, and the government is then going to have to start playing a bit more reactively to you. The more bases you put out, the more guys you can put out. All of a sudden, if I've got a base here, I can dump 4 guys in here, no big deal. Which effectively means they're never going to be able to dig you out of that, because you just have so many guys in there. They'd have to commit so many resources to flipping you over and then fighting you out of there that now all of this is vulnerable. And so you force the government into some very difficult decisions if you start doing that kind of thing. But if you have a bunch of guys out on the board, the threats aren't just like, hey, he's going to do some terror and like get some victory points, or I'm just going to lose some victory points here. The threats also then become, well, he could go lots of places, or he could go into one place. Because imagine if I've got my 3 guys here, I've got an extra 1, 2 guys here, and, you know, I've got another 2 guys in here. You can take a march action, and you can pick up all of these guys, and all of a sudden, you can start walking into some of these areas. You can move a guy in here, and if you can do that early when there's no one else in here, he doesn't got to flip over, because there's not more than 3 guys in there. You can put a bunch of guys in here face up, because there's so many guys and there's active support they have to flip over. That's a sacrifice. That's a suicide mission for those guys, but you don't really care. What this does is it forces the government to take an assault action. You literally, they have to do it, because they can't afford to leave these guys here and you on some event or getting to a propaganda round go face down, because if these guys go face down, they're in trouble, because you're going to do a terror action, they're going to lose 8 support. But this is all enabled by having lots and lots of guys on the board. You won't have as many as the government on the board, but they're going to be a bit spread out, and when you're out here, it's the threat of it that's scary for the government, and it's going to paralyze them. The other thing that you're going to look to do is, because you have volume of guys, the onus is on you to sabotage as many of these LOCs as you can. If you can sabotage, if you take your little march action, marching onto an LOC is free, so you had a guy over here, you had a guy here, there was the guy in here, let's say he marches onto this one, march onto these ones here, because you had guys that you'd rally onto all this. All of a sudden, this one as well, now you force the government in having to take a patrol action. They're going to patrol and they're going to flip those guys over. Cool, you don't really care. It costs you 0 to move on to all of those, but it costs the government 3 to move and uncover them. And if they don't react to that, you're going to terror those locations at no cost, and it's going to sabotage all of those. And those are where the government gets their resources from in the propaganda round, and that is just going to hurt them in the long run by not having any money next propaganda round, so that you can then, like, again, drain the government's resources, and then you can continue to do whatever you want, and they can't react to you. So that is a big thing that you're looking to do in this game as well, is flood the board with your guys. rally, 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 get as many guys out as you can, because then they can't predict what you're going to do. The main thing with an insurgent faction is trying to be, within reason, unpredictable. But where the government is your natural ally or your natural enemy, you also have a natural enemy in the AUC. You are directly opposed to them. They're right-wing extremists. Their victory conditions are to have more bases than you. So they are going to be very specifically targeting your bases. And when they target your bases, they're going to be taking their little terror and assassinate action. So terror puts this down one level. Oh, well, not that's a bad example. Here, we'll do it here. It takes them down one level, so you lose a victory point, and then they remove your base, which is another victory point. And now, let's say, very early on, AUC is also going to be rallying a lot. Let's say they built all their bases. It can happen. I've seen it. They built bases out here, bases out here. Let's say they got a base here. Great. If they have all their bases out, which is very reasonable, they now have more than you. So not only did you lose 2 victory points, they gained a victory point. They're winning. If we get to a propaganda round, AUC wins this game. So there will come a point where you have to build bases and keep that rallying going. Keep building support. Keep getting people to your cause. Because if you don't, you're going to lose the game as well. And AUC is going to win. That's going to be very sad for you. That's one thing that the government, you need to negotiate with the government. And it's a very interesting table conversation to have, and I really, really like it when it happens, is you say to the government, yo, dude, you need to stop airstriking my bases because AUC is going to win. Like, you're handing over control to these paramilitary extremists, and so then the government will, like, give you a reprieve, and then you have to, and then AUC and cartels are sitting there like, I don't like this. But that's something that you have to be very, very wary of in this game, is keeping enough bases out, or if they're really low, you can, and you take a couple losses, it's not the end of the world, but you want to get those back, when it's reasonable. A very interesting dynamic is you and cartels. You're going to be, generally speaking, leaving each other alone, unless one of you's in your victory conditions. You'll start seeing cartels, guerrillas doing terror against you to neutralize areas, or you might start attacking their bases and ambushing their bases where you can as well. But more often than not, if both of you are down in the dumps, you're going to start doing these deals for these shipments. And the shipments give you additional bases, they can give you resources, and they can also give you a free lim op when you have op only or lim op, which is unbelievably powerful. So if you can negotiate with the cartels, or if you can kidnap some cartels people and take those off of them, those are an invaluable resource. Because what that allows you to do is, if you get lim-opped, you can do a terror action somewhere to build some opposition, and then you can rally in that area to hide them all again. And it's a way for you to double dip in areas, or to march somewhere and then attack somewhere, which is normally totally against all the rules. But having those shipments that you've negotiated, hey, I'll leave you alone, Mr. Cartels, or hey, you can have bases here because I'll go over here instead. Or if you just take them from them, strong arm them from them with the kidnap, that's pretty funny. Those are an invaluable resource. But hopefully that was helpful, that was interesting. You're looking to do the terror action to build opposition. You're looking and block people from buying civic action back as well. You're also looking to attack and ambush AUC bases to keep their bases down where possible. But generally speaking, especially if you can keep your bases out, you'll have enough money to to kind of keep doing what you want to do, because you've got lots of pieces. You'll be able to, when you have op and special activity, you'll be able to extort, which means you're going to get money back for the things that you do as well, just because you have volume of pieces. So hopefully that was interesting and helpful. That was a look at FARC in Andean Abyss. I appreciate you very much for tuning in. I've been Alexander from theplayersaid.com.